I'll use Amelia Brooks, daughter, Edward Brooks, a father, Catherine Brooks, mother, James Brooks, a brother throughout. The thick, woody scent of polished oak and old leather always pressed against my lungs whenever I stepped into the formal dining room of the house on Maple Ridge Lane. It was the same room where, as a teenager, I'd laid out my flawless report cards like offerings on an altar, only to receive a distracted, "That's fine, dear," while James, my younger brother, was hoisted onto shoulders for kicking a single penalty shot in a middle school soccer match. Tonight the air felt denser, almost syrupy, as if the chandelier itself were sweating under the weight of expectation. I sat at the far end of the long mahogany table, a pale figure in a charcoal-sheathed dress, nursing a glass of water because the wine would have gone straight to the hollow ache behind my eyes. 3 months of 16 hour days launching a machine learning logistics platform had left me brittle. My collarbones felt like snapped twigs beneath my skin. All I wanted was one quiet evening of ordinary connection. James was in full performance mode. At 32, he still carried the easy grin that had always bent the world toward him. He leaned forward, elbows on the tablecloth my LLC had paid for, and spun a tale about his newest startup and AI-curated subscription box for rare vinyl records. "Picture it," he said, eyes sparkling like he was unveiling the wheel. "Algorithm meets nostalgia. We're not just selling music, we're selling memory." Edward, my father, radiated pride the way a furnace throws heat. "That's my son," he boomed, lifting his crystal tumbler. "A genuine innovator. Not like certain people who just push buttons all day." The barb landed clean between my ribs. I glanced at Catherine, my mother, who gazed at James as if he were the second coming. She didn't flinch. I set my fork down. The roast lamb suddenly tasted like cardboard. I was the one who had wired the money for the Bordox in their glasses, the one whose quarterly deposits kept the lights on in this 4,000 square foot monument to someone else's ambition. The house, the cars, the country, club dues, every brick and hubcap traced back to the trust I'd seeded at 21. Yet in their telling, my role was reduced to reliable job, while James was the heir apparent to some imagined dynasty. Catherine chimed in, voice honeyed. "He just has that magic, doesn't he? Everything James touches feels monumental." Edward chuckled, a sound like gravel under tires. "Chip off the old block. Thinks in galaxies." He swiveled toward me, eyebrows raised in mock curiosity. "Amelia, you're awfully quiet tonight. Burned out from all that data entry." James snorted. "Easy, Dad. Not everyone can be a rocket." Something inside me crystallized, cold and perfect. The exhaustion, the decades of microscopic dismissals, the casual erasure, it all condensed into a single, humming clarity. I folded my napkin into a precise square. Edward turned to the table. My Aunt Ruth and Uncle Harold, perennial yes men, leaned in like courtiers. "Catherine and I were saying just the other day," he announced, voice rich with counterfeit warmth, "we sometimes wish James was our only child." The words detonated softly, sucking every ounce of oxygen from the room. Ruth nodded sagely. Harold murmured agreement. Catherine's smile was tender, conspiratorial. James basked. No one looked at me. I might as well have been a smudge on the wallpaper. I let the silence stretch until it squeaked. Then I smiled, not wounded, not furious, but the calm, surgical smile of a systems engineer who has finally isolated the fatal bug. "In that case," I said, rising, "I'll make it so." Edward blinked. "Come again." "I'll make James your only child," I repeated, smoothing my skirt. "Effective immediately." Catherine's teacup rattled in its saucer. "Amelia, don't be theatrical." "No theatrics," I assured her, slinging my purse over my shoulder. "Just compliance." "Thank you for a clarifying evening." I walked out on steady legs. The front door shut behind me with the decisive click of a server rack locking into place. Outside, the October air tasted metallic, baptismal. The plan unfurled in my mind like elegant pseudocode: isolate variables, sever dependencies, rebuild from scratch. They had forgotten that the quiet architect in the corner office was the one who owned the servers, the fiber, the very current running through their walls. My condo, sleek, high-ceilinged, paid for in cash, welcomed me like a clean compile. I brewed chamomile, hands steady, and opened my laptop. No tears, no screaming. Just the low electric thrum of a problem begging for solution architecture. 2 days of radio silence. Then Catherine rang. I let it ring 5 times. Amelia. No greeting, just clipped maternal steel. Your father is mortified. You humiliated him in front of Ruth and Harold. I know exactly who he is, I said, sipping tea. You could have ignored it. James is under tremendous pressure with the vinyl startup. Your father is so proud. I did ignore it. I cut in. I ignored all of it. Good, she said, missing the point entirely. A throat-clearing pause. Listen, the office lease for James's warehouse is due Friday. The family trust transfer hasn't posted. I stared at the city lights beyond my window. The trust, my trust, paid the mortgage on Maple Ridge, the BMW leases, the climate-controlled storage for James's inventory of mint-condition LPs. I'm aware, I said. Well, panic edged her voice. He needs that space, Amelia. This could be the one. I'm not sure I'll be sending it. A sharp inhale. It's family money. You can't just... It's my money, I said, the sentence landing like a period at the end of a paragraph. Earned by the button, pushing job dad finds so quaint. This is not the moment for your tantrum, she hissed. Your brother is counting on you. Your father will not tolerate. He doesn't have to tolerate anything, I said. He's standing in a house titled to my LLC. On ground I own. The experiment is over. How dare you? I ended the call. Adrenaline ebbed, replaced by glacial calm. First test passed. That night I emailed Marcus Raid, my attorney since I was 23. Subject line: Family and Ventures Trust, initiate lockdown protocol. Marcus called at 8:03 a.m. Amelia, congrats on the platform launch. Saw the metrics, unicorn territory. What's the fire? The beneficiaries have mistaken the administrator for the ATM, I said. Full audit. Freeze all outflows. Begin formal eviction on Maple Ridge, 60-day notice. And commission a forensic dive into every dollar funneled to James's last 4 ventures. Marcus exhaled through his teeth. That's a kill switch, not a pause button. They hit the kill switch on me first, I said. Execute. By noon, couriers delivered manila envelopes to Maple Ridge and to the warehouse in the Arts District. Auto drafts bounced. Corporate cards declined. The silence that followed was the stunned hush of a system discovering its power cord yanked from the wall. 4 days later James called, voice cracking like cheap plaster. Amelia, what the hell? The landlord padlocked the warehouse. My Amex is dead. Dad's SUV got towed from the club. Fix it? I didn't break anything, I said, cradling the phone between ear and shoulder while I debugged a latency spike. I simply stopped propping up the illusion. You're jealous, he spat. Always have been, Dad says. Dad says a lot of things from a kitchen I pay for. I paused. Check the lease, James. Signatory is Brooks Family Holdings, LLC. I'm the tenant of record. Notice of non-renewal went out yesterday. 30 days. A choked sound. Then Edward seized the phone. You will reverse this, young lady. You will not humiliate me. Humiliation is a mirror, Dad. You held it up at dinner. I'm just letting you look longer. I hung up, war declared. Marcus's preliminary audit landed like a meteor. Over 12 years I had injected $2.4 million into James's vision. What returned? 0,000 profit, 87,000 in Barkalangers for his creative loft, 42,000 in first-class flights to Coachella for networking, and, most damning, 2 forged digital signatures on unsecured loans, listing my brokerage accounts as collateral. Identity theft, wire fraud, felony territory. I scheduled a summit in Marcus's 32nd floor conference room overlooking the river. I texted James' potential severance package. 10 a.m. tomorrow, come alone. He arrived in a rumpled suit, eyes bloodshot. You've made your point, he said, collapsing into a leather chair. What do you want? A public apology? Fine, Marcus will explain, I said. My attorney slid the bound report across the glass. Mr. Brooks, your vinyl subscription box claimed $120,000 for bespoke curation algorithms. We found a $299 Shopify template and $110,000 in receipts for a leased Porsche 911, a weekend in Tulum, and a pair of limited edition turntables you listed on eBay 3 weeks later. James went the color of printer paper. It was branding. Branding is not fraud, Marcus said mildly. Forging your sister's e-signature on a 200,000 line of credit, that's fraud. James's gaze ricocheted to me. Amelia, I was gonna pay it back. With what? Your next failed box of dusty 45s. I stood. Here's your severance, James. I won't press charges. I won't sue for the $2.4 million. I walk away, you keep your freedom. Get a job. Any job. Clock in, clock out. Earn your own legend. I left him weeping into his tie. The ripple effect was seismic. James, cornered by terror, confessed everything to Edward in a 2 a.m. screaming match that rattled the cul-de-sac windows. Catherine called the next morning, voice shredded. The BMW is gone. The club revoked Dad's membership. He hasn't left his study in 2 days. In 52 days he'll leave the house entirely, I said. Sheriff enforced. You'd evict your own parents. You evicted me from daughterhood at the dinner table. I'm just matching energy. Edward tried next, voice gravel and bourbon. You're a machine, Amelia. Cold. Heartless? Correct? I said. A machine you programmed to fund your delusions. Machines offline. Click. Catherine showed up at my door 3 weeks later. Coat buttoned to the throat despite the mild spring air. She looked shrunken, cheekbones sharp. May I come in? I stepped aside. She took in the minimalist lines, the floor to ceiling windows, the absence of family photos. It's sterile, she said. It's mine. She perched on the edge of the sofa. Your father talks about ending it all. He sits in the dark. I found brochures for senior apartments, 1 bed, 1 bath, 1,800 a month. We can't. You can? I said. People do. Catherine, you taught me love was transactional. I excelled at the transaction. Now the contract is void. Tears tracked her powder. Keep the house. We'll pay rent. Dad will consult again. I almost laughed. Edward hadn't held a W-2 in 25 years. The mortgage is $6,200. Property tax another $2. Can he consult his way to $8,000 a month? She had no answer. Only a whispered, "You're not my daughter," before fleeing into the hallway. The final tribunal convened on a Sunday, eviction clock ticking at 12 days. Edward summoned the cavalry, Ruth, Harold, second cousin Martin, even great Aunt Lydia in her wheelchair. They filled the living room like a dysfunctional jury. I arrived in a navy suit, briefcase in hand, hair in a low knot. Edward held court from his leather wingback. We're here because we're worried about you, Amelia. Success has twisted you, throwing your parents into the street. I set the briefcase on the coffee table, their coffee table, and snapped it open. Let's correct the narrative. I placed the audit report center stage. James didn't make mistakes. He committed systematic fraud, forged my signature, used my assets as collateral for his lifestyle. Edward encouraged it, told him I wouldn't notice. James, gaunt beside the fireplace, whimpered, Edward's face cycled red to purple to ash. "Tell them, James," I said softly. "Tell Aunt Ruth how Dad helped you Photoshop my electronic signature." James cracked like cheap ice. "He said it was smart." "He said the money was just sitting there," he said. Catherine keened. Ruth clutched pearls. Harold looked ready to vomit. Edward shrank, a deflating parade float. I laid the eviction notice atop the audit, 12 days. After that, the county sheriff enforces. "Catherine, my offer stands. Leave with me now. I'll set you up in a studio. Cover rent for a year. Stay, and you're complicit." Catherine stared at the ruin of her husband, then at me. Hatred flickered, then something rawer. Recognition. "Get out," she hissed. "This isn't your home." "It never was," I said, and left. They vanished in the night, taking only what fit in 2 sedans. The cleaning crew hauled out pizza boxes, broken lamps, a shattered golf trophy. I listed the house at market. It sold in 5 days to a tech couple from Seattle. Edward and Catherine surfaced in a tired brick duplex 40 miles north. He took a part-time greeter gig at a big box store. She scanned groceries at sunrise. James ghosted westward, rumor says Phoenix, maybe Tucson, changing his name every 6 months like a bad alias in a spy novel. The audit report remains my unused nuclear option. I redirected the trust's corpus into the Amelia Brooks Foundation full-ride scholarships for first-gen women in computer science. The inaugural cohort, 5 brilliant 19-year-olds, met me in a sunlit incubator space downtown. I told them, "Your code is your sovereignty. Never let anyone else hold the root password to your life." 18 months later, a plain envelope arrived. Catherine's handwriting, shaky but legible. "Amelia, your father sees a counselor twice a week. I work doubles at the store, my feet ache, but the tips are mine. For the first time the money in my purse is earned, not extracted. I was wrong. We were wrong. I'm sorry. If you ever want coffee, I'm here." I slid the letter into a cedar box beside my grandmother's locket. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a bookmark. A maybe. The noise in my head is gone. I run at dawn along the river, earbuds silent, pulse steady. I mentor interns who flinch when praised, teach them to own their brilliance. I travel, Kyoto in cherry blossom season, Patagonia under star-drunk skies, alone and unapologetic. They wished me gone. I granted the wish, and in the vacancy built a life vast enough to echo. The architect finally lives in the house she designed. The cedar box stayed on the top shelf of my office closet for another year, unopened. I flew to Reykjavik for a distributed systems conference, hiked the Logavagar Trail alone, and came home with frost in my hair and no one to report to. I keynoted in Singapore, mentored a 16-year-old prodigy from Lagos who'd built a mesh network for her village using repurposed routers, and watched her eyes widen when the scholarship check cleared. I bought a second condo downtown, glass walls, river view, no ghosts, and furnished it in shades of storm and steel. Life was a clean compile, no runtime errors, no memory leaks. Then, on a rainy Thursday in late October, my assistant buzzed. "There's a Catherine Brooks in the lobby. Says she's your mother. No appointment." I stared at the intercom screen. Catherine stood under the atrium skylight, clutching a paper bag from the grocery where she now worked graveyard shifts. Her coat was the same navy wool I remembered from childhood, but the shoulders sagged like wet cardboard. "Send her up," I said. She stepped off the elevator smelling of lemon disinfectant and cold air. The paper bag rustled against her hip. "I brought sandwiches," she offered, voice small, turkey and Swiss. "You used to like the cranberry aioli." I took the bag, set it on the kitchen island. "Set." She chose the edge of a bar stool, hands knotted. "Your father doesn't know I'm here." I poured 2 glasses of water. "How is he?" "Angry at the world. Angry at the mirror. The counselor says it's grief. Grief for the man he thought he was. She traced a water ring on the marble. He wears the same sweater every day. It has a hole at the elbow. He won't let me mend it. Silence pooled between us, thick but not hostile. I read your foundation's annual report, she said. Those girls, their essays. One wrote that her father told her computers were for boys. She built a solar-powered weather station anyway. You gave her a future. She earned it. I corrected. Catherine's mouth trembled. I earned nothing. I just spent what you gave. I waited. I'm not asking for money, she said quickly. I'm asking for 15 minutes. Then I'll leave. I gestured to the living room. We sat on opposite ends of the sectional, the city glittering behind us like spilled code. She opened the paper bag, unwrapped a sandwich, and laid it on a napkin between us like a treaty. When you were 8, you built a cardboard computer out of cereal boxes. You taped bottle caps for keys and drew a screen with crayon. You made me sit in front of it while you typed my grocery list. I laughed, said it was cute. I never asked what you were imagining on that blank screen. I remembered the weight of the cardboard, the smell of glue, the way I'd whispered commands to an invisible operating system. I should have asked, she said. I should have seen the architect in the child. My throat tightened. Your father, he's shrinking, Amelia. The doctor says blood pressure, stress. He won't take the pills. Says they're for quitters. She pulled a small orange prescription bottle from her pocket, set it beside the sandwich. If you wanted to see him just once. No expectations. I'd drive. I stared at the bottle. The label read Edmard Borrow Case. The pharmacy sticker was peeling. I can't promise anything, I said. I know, she stood. The sandwich will keep. Eat it when you're hungry. At the door she paused. There's a new girl at the store. 17. Works the night shift to pay for community college. She's studying cybersecurity. I told her about the foundation. Gave her your card. Hope that's okay. I nodded. She left. The elevator hummed downward. I ate half the sandwich standing at the window, cranberry aioli sharp on my tongue. 3 weeks later, I drove the 40 miles north on a Saturday morning. The duplex was brick 1970s with a plastic tricycle abandoned on the stoop. Catherine answered in scrubs. She'd taken a second job as a home health aide. His in the recliner, she whispered. Be gentle, but don't lie. Edward looked 20 years older. The sweater was oatmeal, elbow threadbare. A portable oxygen tank hissed beside him like a loyal dog. The TV played golf on mute. He didn't look up when I entered. Told her not to bother you, he muttered. I'm here anyway. Catherine vanished into the kitchen. I took the plastic chair opposite him. Nice view, I said. The window framed a strip mall and a dialysis center. He snorted. Palace excellence. The oxygen hissed. I brought something, I said. I placed a flash drive on the coffee table. It's the source code for the logistics platform. The one that paid for the house you're not in anymore. Thought you might want to see what pushing buttons looks like. He stared at the drive like it might bite. I don't understand any of that. You don't have to. Just know it's worth 8 figures now. And it started with a cardboard box. His eyes flicked to me, watery but sharp. You came to gloat. I came because Catherine asked, and because I'm tired of carrying the version of you that lives in my head. He shifted, wincing. I was proud, you know. In my way. Just didn't know how to say it without sounding soft. You said it by wishing me gone. A long exhale. I was jealous. Your mother too, though she'll never admit it. You built something real. I built a story. Stories don't pay mortgages. The honesty startled me. I'm selling the duplex, he said suddenly, moving to a studio closer to the VA. Catherine's talking about nursing school. Real school, not the fantasy kind. He gestured at the flash drive. Take that back. I don't deserve it. Keep it, I said. Or don't. Your choice. Catherine returned with weak coffee in chipped mugs. We drank in silence. When I stood to leave, Edward's hand shot out, papery but urgent, gripping my wrist. I'm sorry, he rasped. For the dinner. For every dinner. For teaching James that stealing was strategy. For teaching you that love had a price tag. I let his hand stay a moment. Apology noted. We'll see if it compiles. Outside, the November sky was the color of unpolished steel. I drove home with the windows down, cold air scarring my lungs. The foundation grew. We added a coding boot camp in rural Appalachia, a partnership with a women's shelter in Nairobi. I hired James's old warehouse, gutted it, turned it into a maker space with 3D printers and VR rigs. Teenagers who'd never touched a keyboard built apps that predicted flood zones. One won a UN prize. I flew her to Geneva. She wore the same cranberry, aioli smile I remembered from childhood. Catherine texted occasionally. Photos. Her first nursing scrubs, Edward holding a tiny diploma from a community college Excel course. No pleas, no guilt. Just proof of forward motion. On the second anniversary of the dinner, I hosted a gala at the Makerspace. Scholarship recipients presented projects, an AI that translated sign language in real time, a blockchain for micro loans to refugee entrepreneurs. The room buzzed with nervous genius. At the end of the night, the lights dimmed for a surprise video. My assistant had compiled clips girls in hijabs, debugging in Kenya, a formerly homeless veteran in Portland, demoing her prosthetic control software, the Lagos prodigy now interning at NASA. The final frame froze on a quote I'd apparently said in an interview, "The system only fails if you let someone else write the requirements." The crowd erupted. I looked up to find Catherine in the back row, eyes shining. Edward wasn't with her, too frail for crowds, but she held a small cardboard box. After the applause, she approached. "For you," she said, from him. Inside a single bottle cap, painted silver, glued to a scrap of cereal box. On the back, in shaky Sharpie, "Root access granted, Dad." I laughed until I cried. Catherine hugged me, no words, just the smell of lemon disinfectant and new beginnings. Later, alone on the rooftop, city lights flickering like active processes, I pinned the bottle cap key to my keyring. It clinked against the condo fob, the maker's space badge, the foundation's master key. A ridiculous, perfect admin token. The script kept running, cleaner, faster. Occasionally, a legacy interrupt from the past, a text from James, sober, working construction in Albuquerque, asking if he could apply for a scholarship under a new name. I forwarded it to the review board. Anonymous, merit only. He was accepted. First semester GPA, 3.9. I never visited. Some repositories stay forked. But on quiet Sundays I sometimes drove north. Catherine made turkey sandwiches. Edward showed me his Excel pivot tables with the pride of a man who'd discovered fire. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about conditional formatting, about hydration schedules, about the best brand of compression socks. Small human APIs. One afternoon he handed me a printout, a bank statement showing 300 lutal in a savings account labeled grandkids. Started it last month, he said. Figure if you ever know. I'd like to send $20 a birthday. Compound interest's a bitch. I folded the paper into my pocket. We'll see. The architect no longer needed to burn the old build. She'd simply deprecated it, archived the logs, and shipped a new release. Version 36.0's lighter footprint, stronger encryption, open to pull requests from unexpected sources. And in the root directory of my life, a single line of comment, written in the quiet hours before dawn's Thar, they wished me gone. I granted the wish. Tsar then rewrote the kernel in my own image.